Hello everyone, my name is Taniya and today we are going to learn what type conversion in Java is. But before moving on, we are going to take an example. So what kind of example we are going to take? The same example which we have covered in the last lecture. Why we are taking the same example? Because today's topic is totally dependent on last lecture, that is data type. Why we need to understand data type before learning type conversion? Because this conversion is going to be take place in data type or totally dependent on the range of a data type. And why it is so, for the understanding of this particular situation, we are going to take the same example. So let's get started. Now, as you can see, this is the same example which we have covered in our last lecture. So, what was the example is all about? That I was the owner of some traveling agency and I own three different type of buses under me. Bus A, Bus B, and Bus C. All three different buses are meant for different kind of passengers and have different capacity of passengers. Where Bus A is meant for women, Bus B is meant for men, and Bus C meant for both of them. Bus A have the capacity of 30 passengers, Bus B have a maximum capacity of 100 passenger, and Bus C have a maximum capacity of 300 passengers. So one day what happened that a bunch of 100 passenger came to me and asked me that they literally wanted to sit in Bus C and wanted to travel in that bus. And they forced me that they literally wanted to sit in that bus even though there is no seat left. And as I was a very greedy person and I wanted to earn so much money, so I allowed them to sit and see bus C. And after that, what exactly happened that many of the passengers were sitting on the rooftop of a bus without any safety and security. Some were hanging on a door and a window. And during the bus was traveling to some certain location, what happened in between that, some of the passenger fall from the bus and there was a damage, personal damage as well as the customer's damage as well. Similarly, this happens whenever we are trying to store some kind of value out of range in some data type that is very dangerous. There might be the possibility of lossy conversion. So now, what is lossy conversion? This is very important. So let's get started and understand with the coding implementations. Now, as you can see, there are some comment out line which is going to play some very important role in the type conversion. So, what are they? Firstly, the data type, its range and size are going to play a very important role for the type conversion. So let's get started and understand what type conversion is. So type conversion is nothing but the conversion of some data type, or we can say variable and value, to some different data type. And to do so, there are some rules to be kept in mind. That firstly, the value or any variable must be compatible and convertible. What compatible and convertible means? That some type of data type or value stored in a variable should be convertible in some different type of data type. If it is not convertible, then the programmer is forced to do it by themselves. And how we do that, we are going to start it in this lecture as well. Now, the second rule says that the value at LHS must always be greater than the value at RHS. So now have an example of the first rule, that is the value must always be compatible. Here we have a variable ch storing a character value a with the data type ch. In the next line, we are trying to reassign the ch variable with the integer value, and still we are not getting any compile time error. Why this is happening? Because every character has some integer representation, as you have ever heard of Unicode and ASCIIs in any programming language. The second rule example is that here are two variables var and var1 of type short and byte. In the first line, as you can see, here's a variable of type short. In that, we are going to store an integer type value 1277, which is in between the range minus 32768 to 32767. And in the second line, you can see we have another variable which we have only declared with the name var1 of type byte, with whose range is minus 2a to 127. And the third line, as you can see, we are trying to store var in var1, which is we can say we are trying to store the value of type short and type byte. And here this says that LHS is smaller than RHS. Why it is? Because the range of short is greater than the range of byte, which means this is breaking the second rule of type conversion. So that means we have to do the external type conversion, the explicit type conversion. So how we do this? For that, we prefix the parenthesis before the variable, and in that we are going to write the data type of in which we are going to convert in that variable, as we are going to convert that in byte var. Now, as you can see, here is no compile time error. If you haven't seen, let's redo this. Now, here we can see the compile time error that says possible lossy conversion from short to byte. That means you cannot convert from short to byte, and for that you need type conversion that is explicit. Sorry. And now let's have a look what will be the output if we try to print the var1 of type byte. That is going to be very interesting. Now here you can see that it has printed some absurd value, and why it is because whenever we try to store something beyond the range, then the something happens known as arithmetic rotation. That means the value is being rotated as much as we have out of the range. So to understand this, let's have another example. If we are trying to store 1 to 8, then this is going to rotate one value which is out of the range and give -1 to 8. Now let's cover some more example for the better understanding. Here we have two variables of a1 and b1. A1 is of type short and b1 of type 1, where which means that LHS is greater than RHS, which is true. That means we don't need any explicit type conversion. So this is going to execute very in a successfully. Now we have another example where we have two variables int and short, which means that here it is breaking the rule, that is here control V. That means that LHS is smaller than RHS because we're trying to store the integer value in top type short variable. So here we need an explicit type conversion that is going to be. So here this is going to execute successfully. So here we have third example, which is similar to the second example which we have discussed. So for sure, this is going to be like this, where LHS is less than RHS. So we need explicit type conversion that is going to be like this. But what exactly happens in this example? There will be a type rotation because we are trying to store the value out of range of short. Here we have fourth example. As you can see, we are trying to store integer value in long. That means, which is true. Here LHS is greater than RHS. This is going to successfully execute. Here we have another example. This is very important case where we have two variables. One is of type byte and one is of type character. Why we are not able to store this value of byte in character, even though all character have a integer representation, because it is the game of a range, because the range of a character is greater than byte. That is the reason it is not possible. So we are going to move on. So here we have our sixth example. This is going to be very interesting. As you can see, we are getting our compile time error on the first line of this example. Why? This means the integer value too long for this data type. Why? Because by default, whenever we are trying to store any integer value, then all the value are considered as an integer value. So these should be between the integer range. As you can see, this is out of the integer range. So to store this value, we either need to write capital R or small l to be stored in this large value. Secondly, after conversion, this is going to understand what kind of value it is. So after that, we you can see that we are trying to store the value of long in int. So that means this is false statement, which means LHS is smaller than RHS. So we need explicit type conversion. Here we are going to write int in this. Now this is going to successfully execute this code. Here we have another example. Again, this statement is false because we are trying to store the value of double in float type. So this is going to give uh, an error, compile time error, lossy conversion. So we need an explicit type conversion. Here we have another example. Similarly, when in the decimal, if we are trying to store any decimal value in any data type, so we that decimal value is firstly considered as a double type. So to be understandable, we need to write f, capital F or small f. Uh, After that, it is going to be understandable for the computer. Here we have another example. As you can see in this example, we are getting a compile time error, that is boolean cannot be converted to int, because in Java we don't have any integer representation value for boolean true or false. As you know that in C++ we have integer representation value for true and false, but in Java we don't have. So if even if we try to convert this forcefully by try conversion, this is going to give the same compile time error. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.